But aviation infrastructure, that really has been the sector which has been in focus of late, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. The Indian aviation industry, which has been doing very well for the last 3 years. And now the focus is also shifting on the infrastructure and the ancillaries, that if the growth continues like this, what's the sort of investment that will be needed? Let's take it across to Pankaj for more details on the infra target as well as what the plan outlay is. Pankaj?
So, as you pointed out, the key thing that I want to highlight is that the aviation space in India has been the fastest growing industry for the last 3 years. Continuous 40-month plus is what you've seen, double-digit growth, 40 months. That's about 3 years and 4 months. So we've seen continuous, for so many consecutive times, we've seen a double-digit passenger growth. And that itself shows that the sort of movement that you're seeing from some of the other transportation to aviation space. Now, this also needs infrastructure. This also needs the sort of connectivity, the sort of overall infrastructure which is needed, and that's why this space is particularly getting interested. Now, some quotes, some sort of investment targets that has been declared. So firstly, we had Jayant Sinha, Union Minister for Cabinet largely at aviation, saying that India is expected to become the world's largest domestic civil aviation market in the next 10 to 15 years. Currently, it is close to 9th. Estimates are that you would need investments of close to about 25 billion in the next decade, $25 billion, not rupees, $25 billion in terms of investment over airports, and that in turn would need a lot of investments as far as overall infrastructure is concerned. It also opens up maintenance of the entire aviation space as a largely going ahead and taking it higher, and some targets regarding airports, passengers. So passengers are expected to grow at about 16%. This is estimates coming in for CAPA. As far as airports are concerned, currently 125, which are expected to grow at about 250. Because the passenger growth has already happened, the focus is now on the capex front. Why capex should grow faster is because passenger growth is now getting exhausted, or infrastructure to maintain a passenger growth is getting exhausted, and that's why infrastructure will be needed to build much faster.
Okay, let's take this discussion forward, and who better than Dr. Guru Prasad Mohapatra, the chairman at Airports Authority of India, joining in today on the show right now. Dr. Mohapatra, thanks so much, sir, for taking the time out and speaking with us. Morning, firstly. Now, aviation as a sector, domestic aviation has been clocking double-digit traffic growth for 40 months now. How are airports coping, or rather coping, if such a growth continues? How is it that airports and the industry per se will cope up with this kind of investment flow? Will capex be needed for both greenfield as well as brownfield projects?
As you very rightly started the discussion by saying that amongst all sectors of Indian economy, aviation probably is seeing the fastest rate of growth. This is more than 4 years of double-digit growth rate. This growth itself brings all the challenges for us. Most of our airports are pre-World War II airports, or just immediately after World War II. The land planning and the land availability and all these have been serious problems in the airport because it is not a priority sector those days. Now, with this growth, we see that there is a tremendous need to boost investment into the infrastructure sector. Airport Authority of India today manages more than 125 airports, and where out of the top 20 to 30 airports, what we are doing is we are looking into how to optimize the airspace management, the city side management, as well as the terminal side management. And we have identified for 5 years our own airports are going to pump in more than 20,000 crores, and this next financial year itself, there is a 2018-19, we will be starting new terminal building projects of more than 15,000 crores. So there is a tremendous need for investment, both public and private, and that's what we need to focus on.
Jayant Sinha, the Minister of State Civil Aviation, says that India is expected to become the world's largest domestic civil aviation market in the next 10 to 15 years. What kind of growth, investments and airport infrastructure do you think we will need in the next decade if that's the big dream in place?
See, there are several areas in which you need to work. Let me first speak about the airspace management. Our need is today to how to optimize landings and arrivals per hour in most of our congested metro airports, be it Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, Hyderabad, Bangalore. So that is what we are focusing on, new technologies, investing on new technologies, bringing more qualified manpower. That's one challenge. Second is building new terminals and building more aprons and bays and extending runways or building parallel runways. As I said, in most of our big cities, there is absolutely no land available around the airports to do all this. So, what we are now, the Ministry of Civil Aviation is consciously trying to take up with the state governments to go for second airports. For example, Delhi will have a Jewar, Mumbai will have a new Mumbai. We are trying for similar efforts in Chennai, Kolkata, Bangalore and Hyderabad will have parallel runways. So, that is how we are looking for a second airport for Pune, second airport in Goa. We are trying for a second airport in Bhubaneswar, and that is in Ahmedabad. So, that is how, that is the second part of it, is how to optimize more airport movements and optimize the terminal building capacity. Third area we are looking into is city side development. So, these are the three areas, and you must have heard Finance Minister's speech in the budget speech, where he included the Nav Nirman, that is to take India to the next generation of aviation investments, what we need to focus on. Both private sector and public sector both have to pitch in for this massive requirement of funds and efforts.
Okay, let me also encourage Vinayak Chatterjee, Chairman of Feedback Infra, to jump right into the discussion. Vinayak, the aviation sector in India is growing at a very impressive and a solid run rate of 20% plus, which means in every 2.5 to 3 years or less than 3 years, the sector is actually doubling. But the challenge could be the underlying infrastructure management, B, availability of land, and also availability of capital. And Vinayak, we always tend to talk about road, building, construction, but we never focus on the airport infra.
Yes, so I think you have zeroed in on the A category item for the discussion. I think much of the concern in the aviation sector is about airport infrastructure. I think it is clearly recognized now that the government's Uran policy of getting people wearing Hawai chappals to fly in Hawai Jahaj has gained traction, and I have to compliment the Civil Aviation Ministry for giving this push of regional connectivity, etc. But it adds further pressure to the anyway the normal growth which is happening 20 to 23%, and very stressed airport infrastructure, particularly today in the major hubs of Bombay and Delhi and certain other tier 1 cities, is crying out for attention. If I give you the macro picture first, I think there is a report by the Center for Asia Pacific Aviation, CAPA, who are one of the thought leaders in this sector, and they say that India requires in the next 7 years $40 billion of investment to create fresh airport capacity, but the visible pipeline now is just a little short of 5 billion. So in a sense, our strategic grip on what we wish to do is only there 1/8 of the way. So we are way behind in terms of both the strategic plans as well as the capex to reach that 40 billion. So it's a very serious issue. And if you allow me, I would just want to add another point, that it appears from this year's budget speech and last year's budget speech that the government is very clear to follow an off-budget method financing through asset recycling, which means you sell government-owned operating brownfield assets and get capital released from such operating utilities which government need not operate, airport authority need not operate. They own the assets, they can sell it, and they can recycle the capital back into fresh capacity. So the two issues that are facing the airport authority right now is, what is its stand on an asset recycling strategy? Do we have a roadmap for an asset recycling strategy like Mr. Gadkari is doing on toll operate transfer, where the first bids have come in happily beyond the expectation of NHAI at some 9,000 crores from Macquarie? Does airport authority have any asset recycling strategy? And secondly, this business of PPP in existing airports has been ding-donging for the last 3-4 years. I mean, Jaipur, Lucknow, Ahmedabad, Calcutta, Madras, I think, can we have a definitive situation as to what exactly airport authority wants to do on this? I mean, many PPP documents have been floated and revised, and bids have been called and cancelled. So there seems to be a certain feeling in Indian industry among investors that airport authority is not clear in its own mind how it wishes to proceed on PPP of existing and future airports. The last point is that in some of the recent bids on airport privatization, we are a little surprised from industry to see airport authority itself bidding. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it bid for a new airport, which is today on the back burner, but it did bid for a new airport in Andhra. It also put in a bid for the new airport at Goa. So is Airport Authority an authority that facilitates PPP, or is it itself a participant in bidding for airports? So there is fair amount of lack of clarity and confusion in these areas. But let me stop here.
Okay, so I'm going to throw that question right at Dr. Mohapatra. And Dr. Mohapatra, what is the plan in place for the new airport? Will they be managed by Airport Authority of India? Will there be more public-private sector partnership? Because there is still lack of clarity. Whereas the Delhi and the metro model has been successful in smaller cities, we've not seen this kind of a partnership. Do you think this is largely because of lack of returns which you are promising? Because if the returns were strong, then I'm sure private sector money would have already come in by now.
Let me make it clear, some relevant issues have been raised. See, the Airport Authority of India doesn't make these policies, but let's look at what is the policy of the Ministry of Civil Aviation and Government of India. Firstly, we have a greenfield policy, greenfield airport policy, where anybody can start a new airport, and under which Jewar is being done, Bhogapuram is being done, Goa second air Mopa is being done, then the new Mumbai is being done, and there are many others which have been sanctioned. I am sure they will soon see a lot of movements on that. The second is of developing the brownfield airports to the private investors to invest and manage. So we did Delhi, Mumbai, and partly Bangalore and Hyderabad, that part of the model. But the third thing is there are many airports which, because all the big airports are almost privatized now, all the 6 metro cities, all the 4 metro cities except Chennai and Kolkata, they are almost private hands. Or unless and out of the 125 airports that we manage, 127 now, only 15 airports make some returns. Other airports are more for strategic necessity for connecting India to different within India. So there are other reasons for which the airports are maintained. So it's a choice to take. I think there's nothing prevents the private sector from coming in, and there is a policy in that regard. Now coming to why Airport Authority of India is bidding for those private airports, Airport Authority of India has as much right to bid for any airport as any other private investor. In fact, because we bid for those airports, the returns that the promoter got were much more, and where we didn't bid, the returns that the promoter got were very less.
Fair point. Vinayak, I'm going to twist the question completely, and rather than getting into the areas of concern, let's talk about pockets of opportunity. Vinayak, the infrastructure is getting built up. Now, whether it is in the right time or whether it could have been done better, that's a separate debate. But stock market investors, Vinayak, investors always look for that big mega trend, and airport infrastructure will be, or creation of airport infrastructure, Vinayak, will be that next big trend. So how do you think investors can participate in this mega trend?
Look, there are 2 ways an investor can participate in airport development. One is a full 100% investment in a fresh new airport, which is like Navi Mumbai, which is like Jewar in Greater Noida, like Mopa in Goa. So when an airport is fully in a private mode, obviously investors participate, as they have already shown interest in doing it in Delhi. And the other is investors can participate in the limited tenders, which is about PPP in O&M of airports, right? There, the issue right now is always ding-donging between city side, air side. Can they do real estate? Can they do this? Can they build? Can they not build? I don't think there is need for so much confusion to clear these policy aspects. It's been hanging like this for the last 3 years. Can't somebody take a view on this matter and close it? I mean, Airport Authority will say it is Civil Aviation Ministry. Civil Aviation Ministry will say it's an Airport Authority issue. But like this, time is just passing. 3-4 years have just gone by without any convergence on the matter. And bid and rebid and fresh review and fresh terms and fresh thinking. So in a sense, the investors are a little, shall we say, showing signs of lack of belief in the clear policy on O&M of existing airports. So I think we can't run away from that fact.
Absolutely. But you know, on the beneficiaries point right now, Vinayak, what is the opportunity for infrastructure players, other than, of course, Airports Authority of India, which, like you rightly mentioned, is also bidding right now? Because up until now, you mainly see L&T bidding in construction of airports. Do you think there are other companies as well which could come under the gamut? Do you see more technology joint ventures, for instance, as well coming in by? And what about, as we call it, the aviation ancillaries? Gone are the days of metal trunks and hold-alls, right, which were pretty prevalent during the train journeys. Now it's about the VIPs, etc. of the world. So do you think these ancillary pockets also are bound to do well?
You know, before I answer this question, I want to contest one issue which Chairman Airport Authority raised, and I hope he will respect my point of having a viewpoint different from his. I think the task of authorities in infrastructure sectors is to create the right ambience. When you are putting up a bid for PPP, is to create the right ambience and be some kind of a godfather, you can call it regulator, godfather, enabling environment, architect, oversight, to see that PPPs work. You can't be a bidder yourself. I mean, you have to decide, whether you're fish or fowl, which side of the fence you are. If NHAI puts up a bid, it is also an authority, National Highway Authority of India, airport is also an authority, inland waterways is also an authority. So when these authorities craft bids and put them up for PPP, you think it's extremely difficult to understand the logic. So I'm going to leave this point aside to say, this is a point I'd like to very, very seriously contest, saying, how can you do this when you are yourself crafting the deal and then bidding for it? It's just not on. Your role is to step back and create a governance and an ambience framework. On your second question of a lot of allied services, the answer is yes. Ground handling, logistics parks, city-side real estate development, these are all the the opportunities that airport development is throwing up, and I think they should be clearly left in the domain of private sector to maximize these opportunities, and there is significant investor interest there.
Mr. Mohapatra, would you like to defend your point, the point that Mr. Chatterjee just raised, as to why is Airports Authority of India being only an authority getting into airport construction?
I respect his viewpoint, but I still stick to mine because it's an open competition and nothing prevents us from going in, and we cannot be compared to NHAIA because that is their different mandate. We actually construct the airport and run it, and we manage, and then if you are investing, just kindly look at the 4 PPP bids that have taken place recently. Wherever we joined in the bid, the promoter got a very higher return. Where we didn't, promoter got very less return, and this is a fact, this can be checked. Regarding the ancillary, yes, there is a lot of focus for Make in India possibility also in this. You know, all the aero bridges and many things that we use in the airports now, mostly of these are imported, and we are trying now to see that there is a lot of domestic investment in this, where things are made in India now.
To get closing comments from you, Mr. Mohapatra, what do you think could be the projected, capex which Airport Authority is likely to do in next 3 years? What kind of capital commitment and capital outlay you likely to have in next 3 years?
To spend more than 15,000 crores in the next 3 years, out of which we will be borrowing significantly through borrowings and bonds around 60%, and that is our immediate capex of the next 3 years.
How many new airports you would be able to get up in next 3 years, and how many modernization plans have been approved?
The first major challenge is this UDAN. There are 70 odd airports in round 1 of UDAN and another 70 odd airports in round 2 of UDAN. These are all very most of the airports where nothing exists except a historical strip. So these have to be built afresh and made ready for flying. So these are the first major challenge we are doing now, and we have already in the first round of UDAN 18 new airports have come into the mainstream. Just think about it, 7 decades after independence, we had only 70 functional airports where commercial aircraft flew. Now with UDAN, 140 more airports will be added to the network in the next 1 or 2 years.
We are looking at big numbers. Mr. Mohapatra, appreciate your time and thank you for joining us. Vinayak, a very quick 30-second answer. For companies which currently are in modernization of airport or have enough balance sheet strength and technology which is required for airport upgradation, for stock market investors, could that be a good idea to invest in some of these companies? The reason why I'm asking you this, Vinayak, is because we had a conversation 2 years ago where you were able to decode that if investors buy into road companies or road construction companies, they could make money. So if someone says that, look, I'm excited about air travel, I'm excited about the new airports are coming, but I simply don't know, which is the stock I should buy or which is the company I should bet on.
Look, so far as the large number of new airports that have just been mentioned by Mr. Mohapatra, remember a large number of this number, whatever 100, 140, are very small airports in what is relatively remoter locations for facilitating Udan. They will effectively be a landing strip and certain airport buildings and civil aviation control. So we have to understand that there is no question of great PPP investment in these large number of small airports for Udan. The real issue is the PPP opportunities in the big airports that have a commercial rate of return, as he said, among the top 10, 12, 14 cities. So far as that is concerned, I think the world over, it is not construction companies that bid in PPP of airports, but very specialized airport companies. The investors know the names of those companies and a few others who may have lost the other bids but still keep in the running. So there are only 4 or 5 or 6 specialized companies that can be a PPP participant in the airport. The rest of the market should be happy with the construction opportunity that comes in. So please separate out stock market interest from investing in a company that is an owner, developer, operator of an airport vis-a-vis construction companies that are interested in the construction of airports. And also please remember that a large number of the numbers mentioned of new airports relate to very, very small airports. And the last point I want to make is that, going back to my opening comment about the CAPA report of $40 billion required in the next 7 years, 40 billion means 2,40,000 crores. So we can say 2.5 lakh crores of new investment is required to seriously and urgently address the issue of choked airport infrastructure in this country. What Mr. Mohapatra just outlined was a 15,000 to 20,000 crore plan. Now you can see the vast gulf between what the country requires and what is really in grip in terms of the plans on hand. So I would like to very, very seriously express my concern vis-a-vis the strategic plans in place for boosting up airport capacity.
Okay, gentlemen, it was a very interesting discussion to understand the contours of the aviation sector.